Breaking news today. Senators warn that Putin wins if the United States reduces aid to Ukraine. State Department officials pleaded with the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee to include aid for Ukraine in a $105 billion security supplemental request, arguing that not doing so would help Russia and damage U.S. credibility around the world. According to James O'Brien, Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, it's clear President Vladimir Putin is now playing a waiting game, as of November 8. He believes Russia can win if it can just wait for our elections or until Ukraine gives up. The Republican majority in the House has rejected providing additional funding for Ukraine but has approved funding for Israel's operation in Gaza. The hearing in the Senate centered on non-military aid for Ukraine to help it rebuild its energy infrastructure, keep its first responder capacity intact, and keep exporting grain and metal. O'Brien remarked, "What we need are several things at the same time. We need Ukraine to continue fighting and thriving while this war is ongoing, and to soften Russia's hold on parts of Ukraine in order for them to be able to fight effectively when the decisive battles come," said the author. The supplemental request would set the stage for Ukraine's post-war recovery, as well as set Ukraine up to thrive through 2024, according to O'Brien. Senator Marco Rubio, R. Florida, said he sees the wars in Ukraine and Gaza and China's aggression in the South China Sea as an inflection point that will determine, in my view, what much of the rest of the century is going to look like. However, he also questioned witnesses on what he should tell voters when they ask why Ukraine is important, especially in light of the thousands of illegal immigrants crossing the U.S. border, the ballooning national debt, and the fact that the real military risk is China. O'Brien responded that building a strong coalition of partners and allies is the first step in taking on China. Having 50-odd countries behind Ukraine helps, he said. We're set to compete really effectively. But if the U.S. were to end its support, he added, America will likely pay more later in military spending than it is spending now in various kinds of aid. He also predicted that the United States would make some allies reconsider their commitment to it. Putin might feel emboldened to continue his aggression toward Poland and the other Baltic states if he is not stopped in Ukraine. The United States can improve its standing as a credible adversary to China by lending assistance to Ukraine, which allows us to reinvigorate our own industrial base, as O'Brien put it. He assured the crowd that everything you need to defend Taiwan is in this supplemental. The last thing I'd say is that now is not the time to give up because Ukraine is triumphant, as O'Brien put it. Half of the territory Putin seized in February 22 has been regained. You don't just abandon a job halfway through. The United States has unlocked the alliances and mobilization of dozens of countries in support of Ukraine, according to Erin McKee, Assistant Administrator of the United States Agency for International Development for Europe and Eurasia. She warned that Russia will win if the West withdrew its support. And Ukraine is just the beginning. As Jeffrey Pyatt, the Assistant Secretary of State for Energy Resources, pointed out, helping Ukraine strengthen its defenses weakens Russia as well. He pointed out that U.S. companies benefited from Europe's decision to switch away from Russian oil and gas, and that even if the war ended today, Russia's GDP would be down 20%. This would leave less money in the country's coffers to fund future aggression.